It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change your attitude, change your life. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life brings you interviews with some of the most inspirational and influential people in the world. It's our goal to educate and empower you so you can live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. We have another great show for you today. Imagine running your own business that generates 7 figures in revenue. Does this sound like a fantasy or like something that you could achieve? A trend in employment today is the $1 million one-person business. Joining me today to discuss how one person can accomplish this task is Elaine Pofeldt, a writer for Forbes.com. In her book, The $1 Million One-Person Business, Elaine explains how to identify, launch, and grow a business to generate $1 million in revenue. Elaine was a senior editor at Fortune Small Business magazine, and her work has been published in Money, Fortune Inc., and Good Housekeeping, among others. Welcome, Elaine. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Joan. It's great to be here.
So, Elaine, more and more people today, and many people that I know, are leaving their full-time jobs and starting their own company. Do you believe that now is a good time for a person to follow his or her dream and run their own business?
This is the best time in history, Joan, for someone to run their own business. The reason being that technology has made it so accessible for people and made it possible to scale our revenues beyond what was ever possible for one-person businesses before.
Now, when we talk about $1 million in revenue, I mean, that's a dream for so many people. Are we talking annually, total sales? What is the breakdown of that?
We're talking annually. The Census Bureau statistics for 2015, there were over 35,000 non-employer firms. Those are firms that have no employees but the owners, mostly solo entrepreneurs, but sometimes they're partners, like a husband and wife team, 2 friends that start a business. And these folks were bringing in between $1 million and $2.49 million in annual revenue. So that's an annual figure. That is not what they take home because they have expenses, they have to pay taxes like everybody else. So realistically, someone in a business that's bringing in that type of revenue, based on my research in the book, would be bringing home about $200,000 to $400,000 in annual income.
Elaine, are there particular industries that these types of businesses succeed in?
There are, Joan. I identified 6 that are the most accessible to the average person. The top one is e-commerce. It's gotten easier than ever to build a high-revenue e-commerce business thanks to platforms like Amazon. Another area that's really exciting is manufacturing. In the old days, you needed a whole factory full of people to be a manufacturer. Now you can use sites like Makers Row to connect with outsourced resources or use a co-packer to pack up your food so that it's health safety compliant and be a one-person manufacturing business from your home. And I encountered a number of people in the food industry doing that. The third one is informational content creation. So we see more people who have an expertise creating online courses, webinars, sometimes ebooks, things like that where they turn their knowledge into a product. Number 4 is professional services. This is more obvious. This is somebody like an attorney who goes out on his own or her own, an accountant. Somebody in a highly compensated field could get to $1 million if they price their services right, deliver the right types of results, etc. There's personal services firms, so I'm coming across more people who are in fields like fitness coaching, nutritional coaching, that sort of thing, who are building $1 million one-person businesses. And finally, real estate, which is a fun one, and it's something that can be done as an adjunct to other types of careers. There is one entrepreneur in the book, Corey Binsfield, who is a skateboarder in his 50s. He called it skateboarding for dollars, and he lives in Duluth, Minnesota. He skateboards around his community looking for duplexes and small residential properties to buy, and then he rents them out. And over a number of years, he amassed 116 of these properties by reinvesting his profits. So now that has turned into $1 million one-person business.
Elaine, up until 9 years ago, I had always worked for someone else. And 9 years ago, I became an entrepreneur. I started the company that now produces this show and publishes our magazine. And I actually have two companies now. And to get to that point, there are so many challenges that one must overcome. And what would you say are some of the greatest challenges that face entrepreneurs today? And the second part to that is, what personal characteristics do these people need to have to overcome them? Is there a commonality among successful entrepreneurs?
Joan, it's funny, you and I have a similar career path. I went freelance about 10 years ago, and I think both of us are well aware of what the challenges are through our own experience. So it's a great question. The number one challenge is really the startup capital. That's the number one thing people write to me about as a journalist. I would like to start a business, but do you know of any government grant programs that will give me the money to get started? You really have to figure out how to come up with the money on your own. There's really not that many people that are going to give you money to start a business. So that's the number one challenge. Fortunately, it's very doable. You can save money for a couple of years while you're working in a traditional job. If you have a spouse or life partner who earns an income, you can cut back on your living expenses and live on one salary. Sometimes people will take on a part-time job to come up with funding while they're working in a full-time job. It depends on your energy level, your other outside commitments. You could tap into some savings that you've acquired if you have savings. So that's number one. I think the other challenge is really that our society doesn't have a lot of support systems in place for freelancers. So healthcare, for instance, is very, very expensive if you have to buy it on your own. It can be as much as a mortgage in some cases. It depends on your age, whether you have children, et cetera. But it's a big item that you have to pay for if you don't get it through a partner or spouse. So that's a big issue. If work dries up, you don't get unemployment like your neighbor next door who might work the same number of hours and pay taxes into the same tax system. You're on your own, so you need to build your own cushion. You also have to cushion yourself against unsteady cash flow. So you could be making a six-figure income over the course of the year, but maybe none of it comes in over the summer when your business is slow. So you have to plan for that, and many of us have not developed those skills because we live in a society designed around the W-2 job, which was more of an industrial era way of working. So you have to get very smart about how you manage your money and probably live below your means, which is not easy in our society with all the commercials with new cars and things like that. So that brings us to our traits and qualities that will enable you to succeed. The number one is commitment. It's hard to do this. So you have to really be certain you want to. There are a lot of people that say to me, I would love to go freelance. Tell me about your day. How do you do it? And I know they'll never do it because you have to get up every day and work on it, and they think it's going to be easy. And if you think it would be easy, you're going to be disappointed. You have to put yourself out there. If you're used to having worked for a big corporate entity, when you're calling up as just Elaine Pofeldt instead of calling up as Time Inc., it's a little bit different, and you have to get used to that, and not everybody can, honestly. So there are things like that. Discipline is also important. I noticed there were a number of people in the book who had an athletic background, and I thought, wow, that's awesome, because that type of discipline gives you the stick-to-itiveness to come back to your computer on a day when things aren't going so well. You keep on working at it even if you're not closing sales that day, and hope that tomorrow is going to be a better day. So you need that also, that commitment and discipline.
Elaine, can you share one of your strategies to help someone achieve the $1 million in revenue?
Absolutely. One of the common threads I found among the more than 30 entrepreneurs in the book was that they were very inclined to use automation in their business. These folks were not web developers. They were average professional people. But what they did was look for ways to not waste time on inefficient things so that they could focus on the big picture. I think as small business owners, we tend to get lost in the weeds. We're do-it-yourselfers, and we have to be in the beginning because we don't have the cash flow to support a lot of outside help. But there is a limit to that, and if you're spending all your time entering data into your QuickBooks or you're emailing back and forth relentlessly to set up appointments, you're going to waste the whole day and get nothing big done. So they'll use things like scheduling apps to set up an appointment. I happen to use Schedule Once. There's another one called Calendly that a lot of people like, and there's a whole bunch of other competing products like that, but they enable you to send a link to your public schedule to someone who would like to make an appointment with you. and they can just select the time that works for them instead of the 7 emails back and forth that might happen. So that if you find enough apps like that, you can free up 7 hours of time a week. That's a whole day that you can devote to big picture activities, your business plan, your marketing plan, meeting with enterprise clients who are likely to do a lot of business with you, and get out of the weeds and enjoy your life more. You can also spend that time doing something that helps to renew you personally, because if you're sitting at your laptop 24/7, you don't have enough distance to think bigger about the business. You might go to yoga that day or do something like that that gives you a little distance so you come back fresh and rejuvenated and can really think creatively about the business.
So Elaine, when someone follows your strategies and they achieve this $1 million company, how does that person know if they should sell it? Is there ever a sign or a signal that says this company is now ready to be sold and you can move on to something else?
Usually a business can be sold when it has the right processes in place for someone else to take it over. There was one entrepreneur in the book, Dan Fagella, who started a business called Science of Skill. He's a martial arts aficionado. He won some minor fame on the internet because he's a I don't know what weight class he'd be, but a smaller guy who beat a much larger competitor in a fight that was on video, and it drew a lot of people into his site. He built it up selling martial arts accessories, and then went into personal self-defense and home safety and that sort of thing. He got it to $1 million in revenue on his own using some contractors as help. And then when he had trained them in all the procedures he had and documented those procedures, he knew other people could do what he did, and he positioned it for sale. Before he sold it, he brought on a full-time employee and a part-time employee to prove to potential buyers that you didn't have to be a martial arts champion to run this business. Anybody could run it who was good at running a business. And he sold it for $1.1 million. He had basically set it up so that someone else could easily step in. So that's one sign. But for many individuals, they'd like to run the business for a long time, and the signal they should sell it is when they start losing interest. Maybe they just don't want to answer another call about martial arts equipment. They like to move on in their life. That can be a sign to sell it. Or if you feel like you've taken it as far as it can go and you'd like to move on to something else. But it's very personal. These are very individualized businesses because they are one person or a partnership. So it's personal to the owner in most cases.
The book is The $1 Million One-Person Business, Make Great Money, Work the Way You Like, Have the Life You Want. Elaine, if our listeners would like to get more information about you and your work, where can they go?
They can go to themilliondollar1personbusiness.com. The words are spelled out. There are no numbers in that title, themilliondollar1personbusiness.com.
Elaine, in our final moments, leave our listeners with a tip to get started.
The most important tip to get started is to take the first step. Devote an hour today or tomorrow to researching your business idea, to researching how to put up your website. Whatever the first step is needed in your business, commit to doing it, because it's easy to have ideas, but if you don't act on them, they will go nowhere. And by exploring your idea, you'll get a sense of whether this is something you really want to do and gain the momentum to move forward.
Elaine, thank you so much for being here with us and for sharing strategies that can help us create and grow a successful business. As an entrepreneur, I can tell you I dream about being that one-person $1 million business. So I'm sure many other people do as well. And your book gives us a roadmap to achieve that goal. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Joan. It was great to be here.
This is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found the show informative. At Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life, we believe that knowledge is power. Take what you've learned, apply it, and live your best life now. Remember that the information provided are the opinions of our guests and should never replace the advice of a professional who knows your personal situation. If you'd like more information, visit our website, cyacyl.com. While on the site, listen to past shows on demand, read our digital magazine, take part in the book club, check out our team, and be sure to follow the show on social media. Until next time, this is Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.